Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined, as always, by the managing editor of Horns247, the one and only Taylor Estes. Taylor, we have ourselves a showdown. Texas, handling their business at Kansas State, has now set up a game day worthy showdown in Austin Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. on ABC, featuring those Texas Longhorns against the upstart. Can you believe the season they're having? Number 4 TCU Horned Frogs, led by first-year head coach Sonny Dykes, who replaced Gary Patterson, who's now at Texas.
Yeah. Who would have thunk this would be the case, Chip? I mean, for a variety of reasons. I mean, College Game Day prior to the season, it had only been in Austin once in like a decade, and that was the LSU game in 2019. They, obviously started the season with Texas, Alabama coming here, choosing Austin for the week 2 matchup between Steve Sarkisian and his former team, and then they're coming back for the second time in a season. I mean, that's a I'd be very curious to look and to see how many times a College Game Day goes to the exact same stadium, not just like the same team, but being the fact that they went to Austin once already. It's obviously people. This just goes to show that people are very intrigued by this matchup, and honestly, at the Big 12 race, which is a little bit surprising, I would say, Chip.
Yeah, there's still like 5 teams who have a chance to get into the Big 12 championship game. This is huge. TCU undefeated can afford maybe a loss. Texas certainly cannot. As Roshan Johnson said going into the Kansas State game, we are in a win or go home situation. The playoffs started last week for Texas at Kansas State. They get it done. Incredible first half. Get up 31-10 at halftime, then hang on for the 34-27 win. And make sure you check out our recap of that game at horns247.com, the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to your podcast. And so, Taylor, one thing I find interesting about first of all, Texas is a 7-point favorite at home against the undefeated and number 4 TCU Horned Frogs. And Texas has been favored in each of their last 3 games, including the 2 road games. They just played at Oklahoma State, at Kansas State, now a 7-point favorite over TCU. But TCU is playing their 8th game in a row. They got that terrible early bye week, like in the 3rd week of the season. They'd played 2 games and then they got their bye. They're playing their 8th game in a row, and it's been a tough haul. I mean, TCU has been behind in the second half in 4 of their wins, all in Big 12 play, including last week against Texas Tech, when they did not have Quentin Johnston, the 6'4" leading receiver for the Horned Frogs, who was once a Texas commit. He's number 1. You cannot miss him. But he's got an ankle injury, and Sonny Dykes, we're recording on Tuesday. Sonny Dykes said Quentin Johnston did not practice on Tuesday. They're hoping that he is going to be good to go for Saturday. But if he doesn't play, that is significant. Now, TCU has firepower beyond Quentin Johnston. They've got Darius Davis at receiver, who's averaging like 19 yards per catch. This is the same Darius Davis who has 5 punt returns for touchdowns in his career at TCU, and including an 82-yard punt return last week to open the game against Texas Tech. And Tay Barber, a veteran, just really precise, great hands receiver. And Jared Wiley, the former Texas tight end who goes to TCU and becomes the guy and has 4 touchdown catches. That is second most on the TCU offense to
Darius
Darius
Davis has,
Davis,
yeah.
right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
Quentin Johnston and him are tied with 4.
yeah. So, and we haven't even gotten to Kendre Miller, the running back for TCU, who is um, averaging 6.6 yards per carry in Big 12 play and has been the hammer for that TCU offense in the second half of football games, the way I've wanted Steve Sarkisian to use Bijan Robinson as a hammer in the second half of football games. But Taylor, this is going to be a great test. You got Garrett Riley, the younger brother of Lincoln Riley, calling the plays for TCU's offense, going up against Steve Sarkisian. And we know that Sarkisian had Lincoln Riley's number last year in the first half of that Oklahoma game. And then Lincoln Riley got the best of Steve Sarkisian in the second half of that game. And so I think Texas fans are expecting this one to go down to the wire.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a fair expectation at this point. I mean, these two teams, Chip, it's kind of interesting. Both of them are kind of the tale of two halves, but they're two different halves. Where Texas comes out, seems like guns blazing, firing on all cylinders to start the game, and then after halftime, have put the brakes on and kind of get into protect the lead mode. Whereas TCU has had to come back in a number of Big 12 games, including last week against Texas Tech. I mean, I think a lot of their wins actually have come with second half surges. So it's going to be really fascinating to kind of see how this game plays out. But I'm not going to take whatever the score is at halftime. I'm not going to think that the game's over in any way, shape, or form, even if Texas goes into a similar, situation that they did say at Kansas State, where they had a 21-point lead at halftime and then, ended up winning the game, but only by 7 points. I mean, this is definitely not going to be over at half. It's not going to be over until the game is over. But I will say the one thing that Texas does have working to its advantage is, nobody's really been able to stop TCU's offense specifically, with Max Duggan, the quarterback. I feel like that kid's been there for like 12 years now. I swear, like he's just like he's should be on like to his medical degree at this point, it seems like. But with him, as you had mentioned, their running game is elite. They're they're in the top 25 in scoring offense. I think they're number 3 in the country in scoring offense, top 5 in a lot of the statistical offensive categories. Obviously, Kendre Miller has 12 touchdowns on the year, as you said, 6.6 rushing yards per carry. And but at the end of the day, if there's anybody out there that knows how to break down these teams, it's Gary Patterson, you have to think, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is fascinating. Sonny Dykes said today, I have no idea what Gary Patterson's impact is going to be or how he's going to affect this game. Steve
And
Sarkisian,
Gary also knows Sonny Dykes too
that's
from
right.
their matchups between when he was at TCU and Sonny Dykes was SMU. I mean, they've gone toe to toe too. Sorry,
That's right.
continue. I didn't want to
And
cut you off, but yeah.
well, and Sonny Dykes was an analyst for Gary in 2017 at TCU when Sonny got let go at Cal. So you're right. I mean, there's all this history between Sonny Dykes and Gary Patterson. And so Steve Sarkisian said, and we've said this on the Flagship Podcast here since the summer, that Gary Patterson's primary role is doing advanced scout. So he's the one who looks at the film of the upcoming opponent, looks at all their games, and then gives his thoughts to the defensive staff, and then even some thoughts to the offensive staff about what he sees and what maybe should be part of the game plan. And so undoubtedly he's been scrubbing the film of the TCU Horned Frogs and has probably turned in the best set of notes that he's ever turned in. Texas players said that absolutely they're going to go pick, Gary Patterson's brain this week about players who they're going to be going up against, whether it's offense or defense, for tendencies. And Jade Barron, the Texas nickel corner, said, I'm just going to make sure I know what he knows about these TCU players. So it's fascinating because we know that once the ball is kicked, you better have the right game plan. or the ability to adjust if you're thrown something that you weren't expecting. And so, in the heat of the moment, does a tendency that Gary Patterson shares with Jahdae Barron um, impact this game? I don't know. I think it's going to be fascinating. And, the film speaks for itself. The coaches know because they can basically drop film into a computer and the computer spits out what teams tend to do on third and short, third and medium, third and long, depending on where they are on the field. And so they'll have the tendencies of how much they blitz, how much they play zone, how much they play man, all that. But then, does it impact the confidence of the Texas players? Because it's all about how you feel. It's all about whether you feel like you've got the answers to the test or not. And if Texas has a great week of practice and they feel like they're getting some inside G14 classified intel from Gary Patterson about the Horned Frogs, then okay, we'll see if that can help. We know Texas gets off to good starts offensively, and this is a game, Taylor, where my God, Texas needs two halves from its offense, as you said in our recap of the Texas K-State game. Texas has been outscored 34-6 in the second half of each of their last two games.
Yeah. And one thing, though, I think is something to consider is Texas tends to play better when they're at home. And you know that it's going to be a packed crowd inside DKR on Saturday night. I would not be surprised if it's sold out with this matchup, especially with ESPN College Game Day coming in town. If you look at the ticket prices from before that was announced to now, I mean, it is like it's pretty wild right now. So, but that has played in Texas's advantage, and Steve Sarkisian has talked about that he really feels that they're building a true home field advantage at home against opponents, and I think that's something that Texas has severely lacked. I mean, when you go into stadiums, for instance, like Bill Snyder Family Stadium in years past, even though that they have like 50,000 capacity, that place would be rocking louder than you would hear Texas games with 100,000 capacity. And so that, with Texas kind of changing the atmosphere to having a true home field advantage, that definitely helps. And Texas has played better at home. They have not played at home for several weeks now. I mean, so they played Iowa State last, yeah, but they've only played 2 home games since October 1st. So you got to expect a pretty crazy crowd inside DKR, and that should only help Texas in this game. I mean, anything that you can do to try to knock TCU down, whether it's with Gary Patterson, whether it's, getting after Max Duggan, whatever it may be, there's a lot of things that are playing to Texas' advantage. The question is going to be, can they sustain it for 4 quarters, which is just something we're not sure yet. But I will say at least one thing that is working to Texas' advantage. It seems like they are better in second half of home games than they've been on the road so far.
Yeah, and even against Iowa State, they were outscored 14-10 in the second half, but at least they got to 10.
At least they got scored a touchdown in the second half, right?
They scored a touchdown in the second half,
Yeah.
because against Oklahoma State and against Kansas State, Texas scored 3 points in the second half, and that's not going to get it done. Not against TCU, not against a team that believes it can come back. Because remember, TCU was down 24-7 at home against Oklahoma State, and gradually, chipped away at that lead. And the other weird thing about TCU is that they have been knocking quarterbacks out of games. If you'll remember, they knocked Dylan Gabriel out of the game. They
Which is why he didn't play against Texas, right?
That's right. And Spencer Sanders was banged up going in, coming out of the TCU game. It's been strange. Jalen Daniels, Kansas, got knocked out by TCU. So it's been a weird deal, but Quinn Ewers, we know, plays better at home. than he does on the road, or at least he has. And so this is going to be fascinating to see how how much better Texas can execute at home, and how this defense, Pete Kwiatkowski, with whatever intel he's getting from Gary Patterson, can they get after Max Duggan? Because in some ways, Taylor, this is like a showdown for Big 12 Player of the Year, in my opinion, between Max Duggan and Bijan Robinson. And whoever has the better day, and it would be nice if Bijan Robinson got 30 touches like he did in this game a year ago. I mean, he's ready.
Right.
He can handle it. I think, you and I were joking that maybe Steve Sarkisian's been pacing Bijan so that he can load up on, in these last few games, to where Bijan is the guy and is the hammer in the second half of games, the way Ricky Williams and Cedric Benson were for Mac Brown, because there are games where we're wondering, where is Bijan Robinson with the football, whether it's running, catching the football, whatever it takes, because this is going to be one of those games.
Yeah, it is. And Bijan Robinson currently ranks fifth in FBS college football in all-purpose yards per game. I think he's also fifth in rushing yards, total rushing yards too. So this is honestly, this is kind of going to be, I would say, Chip, a opportunity for Bijan to really make a stake as being one of the top players in college football. Because I think if you cover Texas like you and I do, and the Austin media, I think there would be very few people that would disagree with this in watching Bijan Robinson. There's no question that he's one of the top players in college football. And I think when Steve Sarkisian has kind of made comments that, maybe he's not getting even close to the enough, national attention that he deserves, I think that's 100% true. I definitely think that, the fact that Bijan's name hasn't been like solidified in the Heisman race at this point of the season is a little, I mean, it's not shocking, because I feel like the Heisman has kind of turned into the best player on the best team, and oftentimes the best quarterback on the best team. It seems like the voters tend to go, but this is going to provide, I think, Bijan Robinson an opportunity in prime time with all eyes of college football to really make that claim as one of the top players and should be in the Heisman race. And, if he can do it against this TCU team, if he can put up what this would be his eighth straight game, I believe, of if he gets 100 yards, I think that would be 8 straight games. I mean, this is setting him up at the right time. And what you hope is that the Texas offensive line continues to play that the way they have been playing, which is far better than I think most people would have expected, just with the questions and the youth. Mainly, I wouldn't say questions, is more the inexperience at the offensive line. They've played far better than I would have expected, throughout the season, week in and week out. If they can bring that at home and Bijan can have a field day, I mean, this is a huge moment for him personally. And I would think, if you're Steve Sarkisian and if you're in that Texas locker room and you look at what Bijan Robinson has done for this team and how selfless of a player he is, I would be like, let's do this for him, right? Let's put it together for Bijan and give him a chance to get a trip to New York for the Heisman ceremony, because he deserves it. And he exemplifies what it means to be the elite of the elite in college football. He has not, I don't think he's gotten the credit he deserves. I agree with Steve Sarkisian when he's made those remarks. And now he has a chance to really show it in front of a national audience in prime time.
Well, one of the most telling statistics for Bijan Robinson, according to Pro Football Focus, is he's forced the most missed tackles of any running back in the country, 75. He's got 3 games left. As you said, this game against TCU is going to be national TV, showcase game for Bijan Robinson. Now, Ricky Williams won the Heisman Trophy on a 9-3 team. Of course, he was chasing the all-time rushing record of Tony Dorsett, which had been set 22 years earlier. So there was that whole, can he get the record? Can he get the record? And then there he is playing A&M in the final regular season game with Tony Dorsett on the sideline. And of course, Ricky breaks the record and wins the Heisman. This is going to be fascinating to see if Bijan Robinson can have. He needs to have a lot of signature moments, but this guy is got a highlight reel of signature moments. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if, I mean, look at his last two games. He's had a 36-yard touchdown run. He's had a 42-yard touchdown run, and he can catch the football. I mean, we've seen him against Iowa State. He made an unbelievable catch over the middle to set up a touchdown, fingertip catch. So, look, anything's possible. I get it. But, everyone was saying Hendon Hooker at Tennessee was probably going to win the Heisman. They lose to Georgia. His Heisman campaign falters. We'll see. I don't think there's like an overwhelming favorite right now. And Bijan Robinson is such a likable guy. Who knows? We're getting way ahead of ourselves here. But there's just a lot on the line,
Yeah.
and Bijan Robinson needs to be a critical part of this game plan because when he gets 30 touches, Texas wins. And he had 35 carries against TCU last year for 215 yards. It was awesome to watch what he was doing. And then boom, he gets 30 carries against K-State for 209 yards, 2 receptions for 34 yards. And we asked him on Monday, how you feeling? How you feeling physically? He's like, good. I'll be ready. And, he said he could handle the same load again. So he said the K-State game wasn't even the most physical game he'd been in this year. So I'm not quite sure which game that was, but this is going to be fascinating. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. And you say with Hendon Hooker, the quarterback at Tennessee, once again, Tennessee was ranked number 1. He was, all odds were pointing to him to win the Heisman, even though he isn't one of the top, even like statistical quarterbacks in college football right now. But it turns into a lot of times the quarterback on the best team that wins it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot on the line for Texas. There's a lot on the line, obviously, for Bijan Robinson too. And he has 3 games guaranteed left to in a bowl game now, I guess technically, but to show what he's got. And Chip, I just want to ask you this from a personal standpoint, because I think when you cover players, you get to know these guys on a different level a lot of times when you're a beat reporter rather than just being a national type of reporter covering college football. I personally, maybe this makes me biased. I don't really care if it makes me biased. I want Bijan Robinson to win these awards because he's probably not just from a talent perspective, the best that I've ever covered. He's just overall just the most genuine person that you will meet, honestly. And I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you had covered someone before that. I've never covered anybody as genuinely amazing as Bijan Robinson, whether it's on the football field or off the football field. I mean, the fact on Mondays, some behind the scenes thing, he comes in and talks to us on Mondays, every Monday, and he will stay after sometimes. Like a few weeks ago, he came up to Chip after he was done doing interviews. He's like, "Hey man, I saw you on a documentary. Like, this is one of the best players in college football." And he just is such a cool customer, I guess you could say it, and with whatever he is doing, and he's so genuine. I personally just want to see him win because he deserves it in so many ways. Does that make me biased? What do you think?
No, I mean, look, we are always very careful about who we endorse and who you say is a great guy, because we don't know.
Yeah.
What they give us in front of the microphones, it can be completely different away. When they're out with their friends or with their girlfriend or whatever. With Bijan Robinson, you get the sense that this guy, if he's, to me, as genuine a player as I've covered, as genuine as superstar as I've covered, because he's already a millionaire. He's got all kinds of NIL money. He drives a Lamborghini, but you would never know it. And he stops and says hi to everybody. And that's, if I'm him, I'm completely worn out. I mean, with everything that is on his shoulders from a football perspective, an NIL perspective, school appearances, and then he's always ready for the game and to rise to the challenge. He wants more. He was mad that he didn't get the ball more against Oklahoma State. And I think Steve Sarkisian got the message and made sure that Bijan Robinson had a lot to say about Texas's win in Manhattan, Kansas. And I know we're going to have TCU fans watching, and they're saying, what about Max Duggan? Are you kidding me? This guy is absolutely Heisman worthy. I mean, if you're going to look at why and how TCU got to this point, you're going to look at Max Duggan. This guy's made play after play. He's got 24 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. He runs, he's blood and guts. He gets hit over and over again. He gets up. I mean, his teammates call him the biggest dog on the team from just a killer instinct perspective. And he wasn't even the starter to start the season. It was Chandler Morris who got hurt in the opener against Colorado. It's been Max Duggan ever since. And as you said, Taylor, this guy already has 2 wins against Texas from his freshman and sophomore seasons. And he's won in Austin. He comes down here confident. And so this is fascinating. And the defenses from each side are going to have a huge say in whether Bijan Robinson comes out with momentum and highlights, and if he's the headline or if Max Duggan is the headline. And for that alone, to get a matchup like that in November, I didn't see it coming. I had TCU in the middle of the pack. Believe it or not, Gary Patterson, when I interviewed him in the summer for a story about the song he released, The Day I Walk Away. He always says walk away. I didn't say walked away. Walk away, because he's like, that indicates I'm not done, and that's why I'm at Texas. But he said, watch out for Texas Tech. He said their defense is going to be better than you think. And he said TCU. And so now Sonny Dykes done a great job in the transfer portal. He brought in Alan Ali from SMU as their starting center. Josh Newton from Louisiana Monroe has been a monster cornerback for them. Johnny Hodges from Navy is their weak side linebacker. Mark Perry, safety from Colorado, is a starter for TCU. So, Sonny did a nice job. And Jared Wiley from Texas, the tight end, who has 4 touchdown catches, second most on the TCU roster right now. So Sonny did a nice job in the transfer portal, and they've avoided injury for the most part. Now they're like, whoa, wait, you just said Chandler Morris. Okay, well, Chandler Morris went down in the opener, but Max Duggan is no slouch. And
Clearly, yeah.
And now Quentin Johnston, we have to wait and see if his ankle is going to hold up, because Sonny Dykes said he thought he was going to play against Texas Tech last week, and Quentin Johnston wasn't feeling it. So this will be fascinating. And the games where TCU's come from behind, Taylor, to get it done, the first time was against Kansas. That was a game day game in Lawrence, by the way. TCU was down in the second half, came back and won it 38-31. They were down the next week against Oklahoma State, 24-7 early. They did not take the lead until their final play of double overtime. That was their first lead, 43-40. And then K-State got out to a 28-10 lead in Fort Worth. TCU finished that game on a 28-0 run. And then last week against Texas Tech, they were down in the third quarter and came back and won it 34-24. So, you wonder if this is just something that TCU is comfortable with. Sonny obviously doesn't like it. He'd like his team to get off to better starts and his defense to get off to a little better start, but they know they can do it. And Texas is the opposite, as you said. Texas is the one that gets off to the fast start, and then all of a sudden teams start nickel and diming that lead down, and all of a sudden it's a 1-possession game, and Texas fans are like watching through their fingers. So it's going to be fascinating to see if Texas can get that corrected at home as you said, in front of a massive crowd should be really, really amped.
Yeah, and I think against West Virginia too. West Virginia, at least I think they had a first quarter
It
lead, I
They were
believe.
tied, but
Okay,
West
yeah.
Virginia never led
Oh wait,
in.
no, the start of the second quarter, they
Oh,
went up
yeah, in the
14 to
first half,
7.
in the first half.
Yeah, the first half. Yes, the first half. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. That's it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but again, TC is going to peck away,
Yeah,
and
and West
yeah.
Virginia was down, what, 34-31 with the ball and 3
Mhm.
minutes left with a chance to drive to take the lead and couldn't get it done. So, that I asked Brian Estridge, the voice of the TCU Horned Frogs, and he's the featured guest on our flagship podcast interview previewing the TCU game. I said, "What's been the closest call for TCU?" And he struggled. Oklahoma State obviously was like oh my God, are they
Yeah.
going to be able to get it to overtime? It was actually Jared Wiley's touchdown catch with a minute 57 in regulation that ended up forcing overtime for TCU. And so he kind of said Oklahoma State, but that West Virginia game, people forget. West Virginia had a chance there to take the lead late. Um, Taylor, before we get to love it or leave it, I was at the season opening basketball game at the Moody Center. Texas playing a 20-win, a UTEP program that won 20 games last year. I think they only returned like 11% of their offensive production from that team, but a really well-coached team. And um, I got two big takeaways from that game. The Moody Center is awesome. Like, they've got paneling where the upper deck is for concerts, angled so that all the sound stays right on the basketball court, and the students being right there on the court. It That would have been a half empty Irwin Center. Instead, it's a packed Moody Center, and the noise, the energy. Joe Golding, the coach at UTEP, said the music was too loud. He said he had a headache and he couldn't hear anything after the game. But the other takeaway is Chris Beard struck gold in the transfer portal with Tyrese Hunter, the Iowa State point guard transfer, the Big 12 freshman of the year, and Sir Jabari Rice, I don't know if it's his sixth year of college basketball, but he played 4 years at New Mexico State with Timmy Allen's older brother, Teddy Allen, who they called Teddy Buckets. And Jabari Rice is a monster. Like, it was a 8-point game and with 7 minutes and 42 seconds left. And then Jabari Rice comes in, gets an offensive rebound on a missed free throw, gets fouled. He scores 7 points in a 15-3 run that turned it into a 20-point blowout. Like, that kid just made play after play after play and was like flexing with the crowd. Like, we didn't see that at all last year. No offense to Marcus Carr, but the offense never looked comfortable with him at point guard. Texas has got answers now, and they still have Marcus Carr. So, boom, I'm calling
Is
my
his
shot.
name Sir Jabari Rice?
Yeah, Sir
I like
Jabari
that.
Rice.
Sir
Yes. I was like,
Jabari
"Can we
Rice.
call you Jabari or Sir Jabari?" He's like, "You can call me Jabari." And then Tyrese Hunter goes, "It's Sir Jabari."
Sir, yeah. Yes,
And they're
sir.
best friends already, like
Mhm.
those two. And I mean, the chemistry they have when on the court together, it's just like last year, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, look at all these transfers and look at all these points these guys have scored." They played on bad teams. They
Yeah.
they 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 didn't know how to win. No offense, but these guys have won. Tyrese Hunter took Iowa State to the Sweet 16 last. Iowa State, they were a 10 seed, 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. And Jabari Rice took New Mexico State to the NCAA tournament as a 12 seed and upset UConn, the 5 seed. And so, yeah, you
Yeah.
got to have elite guards to play into March. If Tyrese Hunter and Sir Jabari Rice stay healthy, Texas is going to be a problem. And I know people are like, they don't have any front court. They got out rebounded by UTEP. They'll figure it out because
Yeah.
these two dudes are legit. All right, Taylor, let's you ready for some love it or leave it?
I am. Before we get to love it or leave it, we're going to take a really quick break, but stay tuned because we have much more football talk coming up as Texas prepares to host number 4 ranked TCU Saturday in prime time. We'll be right back. And if you're watching us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, we will roll on here. Chip, you ready for some love it or leave it?
Let's go.
All right. My first one for you is love it or leave it. Texas will score more than 3 points in the second half of Saturday's game.
My God. I'm going to have to love this because if I can't even believe right now that Texas has scored only 3 points in each of their last 2 games. I mean, Steve Sarkisian, the offensive guru, with all this firepower, Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson, Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, JT Sanders, for crying out loud. 3 points? Come on, Sarkisian. You want to get to the Big 12 title game? Well, this is on you. You got to make it happen. I mean, Texas has the best run defense in Big 12 conference play. Like Pete Kwiatkowski has done, and Bo Davis and Jeff Choate, they have done what they needed to do to fix the Texas defense. The defense is living up to it. The defense came through at K-State. It's time for the offense to deliver the goods in a shootout, but maybe not a shootout. I mean, with the Texas defense. So I'm going to love this, Taylor, because there's like no way, right? There's no way that Texas could just score 3 points in the second half of this game. At home, I'm going to love this. How about you?
That was what I was going to say. At home, I feel like Texas is going to, but they still don't score a ton in the second half in home games. I mean, at least against Big 12 competition. Against West Virginia, they scored 10 points. Against Iowa State, they scored 10 points. And then go back to Alabama, they scored 9 points. But they at least score more than 3. So when they are at home, it seems like they have a better recipe to find the end zone at some point in the second half. I kind of can't believe I'm going to love this just because in back-to-back games, they've only put up 3 points each in the second half. However, I do think that they play better at home at a halftime. It's not great. Like they're still getting outscored in the games that I had mentioned in the second half, but still they've at least found a way to put up more than 3. So yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to love this. And Texas, just don't prove us wrong here because we don't want to have to be the ones coming out and like, how the hell did they only score 3 points again in the second half after this game? So
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, and there's no reason. Like I think that's the hard part is like you can point to a lot of different things, but it's all mental. Like that's what it is. It's not talent. It's not anything other than a mental issue, whether it's pre-snap penalties, whether it's Steve Sarkisian getting into kind of protect the lead mode or changing the way he's calling the game. I mean, it's all a mental thing, and they got to get over that mental roadblock, I think, especially if they want to actually continue to contend for a Big 12 title bid.
Yeah. Yeah. And they did have, I mean, I got to give it to K-State forcing a couple fumbles in the second half. Roshan Johnson's basically running in for a touchdown, and
it was a great play.
Echo Guido hammer chops him and the ball comes out, and Xavier Worthy got hit so hard. I saw Xavier Worthy at the basketball game Monday night. I was like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm good. So
yeah,
kudos, because those turnovers certainly stifled Texas. But still, got to find a way. How about just handing the ball to Bijan Robinson? All right.
Yeah.
Love it or leave it. Number 2.
All right. Second one is Gary Patterson gives Texas a definite advantage in Saturday's game. Love it or leave it.
I'm gonna leave this. I don't know if it's a definite advantage. I mean, the TCU players might be using that as motivation to play the best game of their season, because maybe, some of these guys didn't have the best relationship, or, Gary Patterson coached them too hard or whatever. They did have a 5-7 season last year. So I'm going to leave this. I think Gary Patterson's a great coach. What he's done at TCU, my God, is ridiculous. He had almost a 70% winning percentage. He had an undefeated season in 2010 with a Rose Bowl victory. Finished number 2 in the AP ranking that year.
Is
The
the
guy
reason why TCU is a Big 12 team, a Power 5 school, and not a Group of 5 school?
That's right. But it's so fresh. The divorce is so fresh that I don't know if the TCU players are like huddling up saying, hey, man, let's make sure we stick it to Patterson. I don't know. So I'm going to leave this. Taylor, how about you?
I think I'm gonna love it because I do feel like, I mean, it maybe I'm buying into it a little bit too much, but I mean, think about Texas playing against Alabama, for instance, earlier in the season. I mean, they were in that game with a backup quarterback. And I have to think a big reason is because the coaches on Texas staff knew the personnel well and knew what they were going to be, game planning against in a Nick Saban coach team. Gary Patterson knows the type of game plans that Sonny Dykes has put together, whether it's at TCU or SMU. I mean, he game planned against him for how many years, when Sonny Dykes was the head coach at SMU, and those games were always seemed to be pretty competitive too. And with Gary Patterson, really he was instrumental in recruiting a lot of these guys. I mean, Max Duggan, he was there. He signed Max Duggan. It's not like he got him out of the transfer portal. And so with maybe I may be buying too much into it, but I think that Gary Patterson being on the Texas staff does give Texas a definite advantage in Saturday's game. I'm not saying that that means that they're going to blow TCU out, or that I still think it's going to be a close game, because I think TCU, just it's hard to count them out, especially with how well they've been playing as games wear on, as opposed to Texas kind of putting the foot on the brakes a little bit as games wear on. So I definitely think it's going to be a close one, but I think Gary Patterson could be the difference maker in this, similar to how I know Texas obviously lost the Alabama game, but still the fact that Alabama was number 1 in the country when they played, reigning Heisman winner at quarterback. They played with a backup quarterback for 3 quarters who was also injured and still only lost by 1 point. I think it's hard to overlook the personnel, understanding the like how, if anybody knows how to break down Max Duggan, it's probably Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson probably broke him down quite a bit when he was the head coach and got after him. So yeah, I'm gonna love it and say that Gary Patterson definitely gives Texas an advantage in this game.
I like it. I like it. And love it or leave it. Number 3.
All right, third one is love it or leave it. Texas is undefeated when Bijan Robinson has 30 touches in a game. So he'll get 30 touches on Saturday.
Oh, I mean, if last week didn't put an exclamation point on the fact that Bijan Robinson has to get 30 touches in a game, especially with the season on the line, all your Big 12 title hopes, or hopes of reaching the Big 12 title game, I should say, on the line, you've got to put the ball in the hands of your best player. And Taylor, D. Winters, TCU's sack leader, one of the fastest outside linebackers in college football, is going to miss the first half of this game because he was ejected for targeting in the second half of the win over Texas Tech. Not having D. Winters in there for the first half, you better load up on points in the first half, and you better load up on carries, touches, put whoever that backup linebacker is in conflict with Bijan Robinson as the ball carrier or receiver, and load up, and maybe you can finally break the Horned Frogs' will to the point where they can't come all the way back. But I'm going to love this, Taylor. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of going to love it because I want to see it probably more than anything. Just, I mean, there's no reason at this point. I mean, if Bijan is as healthy as he says, he feels good, coming off of a 30 touches performance on the road against a pretty
Really
stout
good
case.
defense.
Yeah, like probably better than TCU's defense. I mean, K-State's defense is no joke at all. And so, and go back to even Iowa State, with between him and Roshan Johnson, they really just hammered it home to get that win against Iowa State, which had one of the top defenses in the Big 12 and one of the top run defenses, I believe, in college football, or top 15, I know for sure, at the time that they played in college football. And he stuck with it and it worked. And so I think I would like to see that again. So I'm going to love this and give Steve Sarkisian the benefit of the doubt. I think Sark wants Bijan Robinson to be the headliner and to get all of the attention and accolades that he deserves. And so, you know, people remember November, give the ball to number 5 so that he can make this a memorable one for Texas and for himself.
Yeah, that Iowa State game you just mentioned, 28 rushes for 135 yards and 4 receptions for 36 yards. One of the 3 games where Bijan Robinson has gotten 30 touches or more, and Texas is 3-0 in those games. So
Yeah.
with that,
Hold on, Chip. I have a bonus love it or leave it for you. So this is totally off script. Chip does not know this one's coming or anything. So I've got one for you. Ready for this?
okay, I don't know.
Bonus love it or leave it. Another 100-yard performance should be enough to put Bijan Robinson in the Heisman race.
Okay, I'm going to leave this because he's got to win.
Okay.
It's got to be a 100-yard performance in a win. And yeah, that could get him into the Heisman conversation. At that point, Texas would only have the road trip to Kansas, which has been very dangerous. And Jalen Daniels probably be coming back at quarterback for the Jayhawks. And then Baylor, surging Baylor, comes to Austin to finish the season. Baylor's been running the football with Robert Reese, and their defense has been getting better. I think Bijan Robinson, that's what you want. You want high-profile games down the stretch, and you need the country's imagination to be captured. So I'll say 100 yards in a win should at least get him in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I 100% think. I mean, a win is definitely probably the biggest thing. So I was going to leave it too. I was expecting you to love it. That's why I did that. But overall, I think 100-yard performance plus a win. It especially in prime time. I mean, everyone. If you're a college football fan, if you watch College Game Day, you're going to see them talking a lot about Bijan Robinson. This is a prime opportunity for him. I think he already needs to be in the conversation because the Heisman, remember, is not the best player on the best team. It's supposed to be the best player in college football. It's changed a lot. There have been a few years I feel like they got it right, probably. I would say RG3, Johnny Manziel, they weren't on the best team. They still won the Heisman. I think they got it right. Sometimes I feel like they haven't gotten it right. But yeah, I think that 100-yard performance and a win should be able to be enough to at least get him in the conversation. And then especially if he follows it up with, continued performances like that, because if Texas can leave this game with a win, I think the people that vote on these type of awards are going to be paying a lot more closer attention to Texas down the stretch in November when, leading up to the voting period.
I'm gonna raise the ante a little bit because
Okay.
TCU's run defense in Big 12 play is 6th in the Big 12. They're giving up 169 yards rushing per game. So I'll say 175 yards rushing.
Okay.
In a win. Because that would mean, and if he got to 200,
back-to-back 200-yard games.
Yeah,
Come on.
Then he absolutely should be in the conversation in a win.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And for his sake, hopefully there's a Reggie Bush type highlight from the game or 2 or 3, because then I think this is when you want to get hot in the Heisman race, because everybody goes back and starts looking at everything you've done, and they really look at it and they're like, oh my God, NFL scouts love this guy. He could be a first round pick, even as a running back. So yeah, this should be, the headline coming out of this game should be the Texas defense stifling the TCU offense and Bijan Robinson having one of the best games of his Longhorn career.
Put some extra mustard on that one. Some extra mustard.
Bijan. Love it. Have you had your Bijan Mustardson yet,
I
Taylor?
haven't. I need to order it because I want to. Well, I guess I'm kind of. My parents do listen to our podcast, so I'm kind of giving it away. But my mom like absolutely loves Bijan Robinson. Both my parents do, and so I have ordered some for them. It hasn't gotten there yet, but I need to order some for myself too. So
Yeah, it's got that little horseradish bite to it that I love in a Dijon, but it's Bijan Mustardson. And the box that it comes in is totally bonkers. Like,
yeah.
it's hilarious. You have to read it because you're like, huh? But there you go. There's your little tease to go get your Bijan Mustardson. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Flagship Podcast, previewing Texas-TCU, talking a little Texas basketball. We always enjoy being able to chat with you, and we'll do it again after the Texas-TCU football game. So even you night owls, who struggle to sleep, watch out because Taylor might post that thing at midnight. But we will have our thoughts post game right here on the Flagship Podcast. So make sure you're subscribed to the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a 5-star review if you really enjoy it. That our bosses would appreciate that. So for Taylor Estes, I am Chip Brown. Until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com. Until then, stay safe and keep the faith.